Well, again, they're going to have to be gap sound in terms of the run defense. However, I would pressure Mac Jones all day long because I think this is the most challenging defensive structure that he'll go up against. They're going to challenge their protection schemes. They're going to put the guys in the A gaps, those two linebackers. They're going to bring different types of safety pressure, nickel pressure, which makes him every time be on top of where he knows where his issues are.
Welcome in. Week 12's in the books. Week 13 is here. It's the Hurry Up on SI.com. I'm Albert Breer. And we're going to bring in two guys that you guys who've watched this show are very familiar with. On your left, we've got former NFL quarterback Matt Cassel. On your right, we've got former NFL GM Thomas Dimitroff. And guys, I'm going to start with a topic here that you guys are really familiar with. Obviously, Thomas, you worked as college scouting director of the New England Patriots. Matt, you played quarterback for 4 years for the Patriots. And maybe the biggest game of Week 13 is that Monday night game, the Patriots going into Buffalo. And the Patriots coming out of last year, didn't win the division for the first time in 12 years. They'd won 11 straight division titles. They'd won 17 of 18 division titles. And now this is a little bit of a different spot. The Patriots go in as the challenger. They go in as the upstart. The Bills come in as sort of the established team. Like, Matt, should we be looking at it that way? Like, should we be looking at the Patriots as the team that have to go in there and prove something? Or do you look at this as sort of maybe the Patriots coming off of a one-year blip and now, like, based on where we are, maybe we should expect them to win the division?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you should expect them, but this is a prove-it game to me, right? Both of these teams are quality teams. They're well coached. You got Coach Belichick. You got Sean McDermott. They have good defense. They have good offense. They're good in all three phases, so to speak. But in terms of the division right now, the Buffalo Bills are 3-0 in the division, and the Patriots lost to Miami early. They're 2-1. So this is a pivotal game for them because they can't lose two games in the division and think that they're going to be able to catch up to the Buffalo Bills at the end of the year and something is going to go right for them. So right now, this is the biggest game of the year by far, Monday Night Football, and it's really, I think, going to decide the AFC East in this circumstance.
Thomas, like, how do you see like where they are with a rookie quarterback too? Because obviously you went through that with Matt in Atlanta, and you guys went 11-5 that first year. You were able to contend with a rookie quarterback. Like, how is this like a little bit of a different challenge now? You know, I think like up until now, it's like good, you know, and like he's getting better. And now you're throwing him into a huge spot on Monday night, on the road, in Buffalo, in that environment. We all know what it's like there. Like, what do you think we're going to find out about Mac Jones on Monday night that maybe we don't know already?
Look, I think you're right. I mean, this is a perfect scenario leading up to this, giving him all the opportunity to grow. Like you mentioned at the beginning, you have the world-class head coach, and I knew you guys are all worried about the Homer situation here with Matt and me, of course, but you have a Hall of Fame head coach, one of the best ever. You have as well, I think, one of the best coordinators ever in Josh McDaniels, the way that he approaches things. The similarity of what we did with Matt Ryan back in those early years when we had Matt and we had Michael Turner as our running back, we eased him in. I think they're doing a really good job similarly with how they have approached it with Mac Jones. They didn't put a ton of pressure on him, but now we're building up to some pressure. But the way that they're doing everything with him, the way they're keeping it fairly streamlined in my mind, they're not pushing him to go down the field as much as maybe some of us would like to see. I love that. I love that for the organization. It's gaining a lot of confidence for not only the quarterback, but for everyone else having confidence in that young quarterback. And again, being there back in 2008 with Matt Ryan and what we did, it feels right. I love the Bills, by the way. I love what McDermott is doing, and I'm a big fan of Brandon Beane, how they're putting the team together. This is a clash of the Titans and a clash of really good football people coming to the table. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, and you know, Matt, like Thomas just mentioned the strategic element here, right? Like, and one thing, like having talked to some coaches and some scouts about this that I picked up on the Patriots is they're running the ball a different way than most teams are these days. Like, you see more zone schemes where you're stretching the defense out and you're hitting seams. And this is a more direct run game. Like, this is a lot more gap scheme. They're running, you know, ISO plays. They're running power plays. So like, if you can give us an idea, just from an X's and O's standpoint, like what Thomas was talking about there with Michael Turner, what they did for Matt Ryan in featuring Michael Turner back in 2008, right. Like, how do you see what the Patriots are doing with their run game, making things a little bit easier on Mac Jones.
Right. The big part for the Patriots offense right now has been the balance that they have. And like you said, it's not the ton of outside zone. It's downhill in your face, creating double teams up front. The power run game, the switch up for them is sometimes the weak side counter and the outside crack toss play, but they're able to get a ton of production on first and second down. And that also allows them the balance on third down. They don't have to get into a ton of passing situations. They've been able to run the ball successfully on that third and 4 or less situation as well. So that's taken a lot of pressure off of Mac Jones. And then also in terms of just their passing game and how they approach it, it's a lot of quick game. It's ball control. It's those intermediate passes. They take their shots. I think last game was probably a game in which they pushed the ball down the field, but the play action just absolutely marries really well with that run game and the downhill run game where you get that second level to suck up and you're able to throw the crossers behind them. So there's a great balance right now, and they don't have to put everything on Mac Jones' shoulders. However, where Mac Jones has been really successful is third down. His accuracy, his efficiency, and continuing to move the sticks. He's been outstanding on third down in terms of the passing game.
So Matt, like then if you're Buffalo, how do you test him? Like if you're Leslie Frazier and you're putting together the game plan this week based on what you've seen, like how do you think, Buffalo should approach this and try to maybe put the ball in the rookie's hands a little bit more?
Well, again, they're going to have to be gap sound in terms of the run defense. However, I would pressure Mac Jones all day long because I think this is the most challenging defensive structure that he'll go up against. They're going to challenge their protection schemes. They're going to put the guys in the A gaps, those 2 linebackers. They're going to bring different types of safety pressure, nickel pressure, which makes him every time be on top of where he knows where his issues are, right? So if they show pressure over here and you protect yourself, you've got to know, hey, if this nickel fires over here, I'm hot. So the communication's got to be great, but it's going to be a loud electric environment. It's going to be hostile. So you're going to be on the road, you're going to be in silent count, all those things. So I'd make him communicate all day long. And the only way that you do that is not being vanilla and just showing typical cover 4 coverage. It's just disguising, making sure you're coming up and pressuring him, make him communicate to the offensive line, to the running backs. So everybody has to be on the same page.
Do you think, Matt, like this is like a fake media storyline, the idea of being the hunter versus the hunted? Or do you think there really is? Because you've been in both spots. Like when you were in Kansas City, you won the division. You guys were kind of the team that was coming up, obviously in New England. You saw, what it was like to be the big dog. Is there a difference, going into a game like this, being the hunter versus the hunted?
Well, you're going to get everybody's best when you're being hunted, right? And right now, the Buffalo Bills, being the division winner last year, they're going to be a team that the Patriots are going to play that card as well. Look, guys, this is a team that won last year, and I'm sure Bill Belichick's sitting in that meeting saying they're the top team. We have to knock the top team off, and we have to go out there. And if you are the hunted, I'm talking about the Buffalo Bills, they're a team that has to take on the hunter mentality. At the same time, you're at the top, and you have to prove it week in and week out because you're going to get the team's best. There's no more surprises. Where last year, I don't know if they surprised team later in the year, but early on, they didn't know what team they were going to be. They didn't know that Josh Allen was going to mature and continue to grow the way that he did and perform the way that he did. But now it's about proving it year in and year out and having sustainability within that organization for your team and the same message that you send as a coaching staff.
All right. It's going to be exciting on Monday night. I think it's the game of the week. Our second topic for this week, the Cleveland Browns. Now, they don't play this week. They're on their bye, but they fell to 6-6, falling to the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday night. It didn't look pretty. It wasn't pretty. And again, a lot of blame is falling at the feet of the quarterback there in Baker Mayfield, the number 1 overall pick in the 2018 draft. The Browns have chosen to go in the 4th year of Baker Mayfield's rookie contract. That's not normal. You don't see that all that much. Usually after year 3, it's decision time. And more often than not, when a guy doesn't get extended after year 3, his days are numbered. And I feel like this is one of those rare occasions, Thomas, where I don't know if we know if he's the guy long-term there. And I keep thinking of, and this has popped in my head this week, right? Like how, like you look at like where Drew Brees was, right? And I thought of this just because I know Sean Payton liked Baker Mayfield coming out, right? And you think about like where Drew Brees was through 4 or 5 years, and we didn't think he was going to become what he wound up becoming. And then he found a perfect fit somewhere else. And I'm sort of wondering, like with Baker Mayfield now, Thomas, we'll start with you on this one. Like I said, is the rest of the year referendum on Baker Mayfield? And with so many guys in that roster that are in a win now position, guys, veteran guys like Jack Conklin, like Jarvis Landry, like Nick Chubb, like Myles Garrett, like Denzel Ward, like having that core together that's, ready to win right now. Like if you're Andrew Berry, the general manager of the Browns right now, are you looking at it and saying to yourself, these last few games, like we're going to find out what we have in Baker Mayfield. And if he doesn't play up to the standard we set for him, we have to be in the market for guys like Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson when we get to the offseason.
This is one of those moments for Andrew Berry. Like you, I like him a lot. I think he's smart, and he has of course a lot on the ball. This is a maturing evolution time for Andrew. This is a big deal. Prior, the beginning of the season, you're thinking about it. Should we or shouldn't we? I'll throw my plug in for Tom and Jack Mills. I think they're really good agents. They have a guy who has, a lot of complications to him. Baker Mayfield, of course, we know his talents. We could talk on and on about what he does do and what he doesn't do. All the other stuff around him that would, as Matt knows, would be like perceived as massive distractions within the Patriot paradigm is not easy for a young general manager and a young head coach to deal with. And I just think after all is said and done, they're going to have to sit down and they're going to have to look at not only the talent and what he does on the field, but the other stuff that they're going to be dealing with. And is that what they want their organization to be based around? Because you and I, all three of us know you're revolving around your quarterback, and that quarterback sets a tone. The fact that we have fathers popping off within that organization about Baker Mayfield, I'm not saying that's Baker's fault. We could go round and round about that. I'm a big believer in knowing that social and digital has changed. I said this the other day, like, hey, fathers, don't F it up, man. There's a lot going on here. Keep your kids positive. Do what you need to do, but don't throw this into turmoil. And I just feel like it's just all of that's going on there. And that is not easy for a team trying to build and maintain in the NFL.
And you know what, like Matt, like I look at like what Thomas has said, and I sort of think about like what the quarterback is, right? Like, and you were this guy and you had to stand at the podium and answer the questions when things weren't going well, right? Like, and I just remember a really established veteran quarterback once saying to me, like, when things are going wrong, it's me. When things are going right, it's we. I have to operate that way. I understand that that's part of the job. And I sort of think about that when, Thomas just said what he said about Baker, because you think about like when things went wrong, right? And it was sort of like everybody else's fault. And I wonder if that's like maybe what opens the door. Maybe that's why it has to be that way, because that opens the door to someone's dad saying something about Baker or that rubbing this player or that player the wrong way. And so I just wondering, like, kind of like from your perspective, having been the guy who's been up at those microphones in the past, like when a guy isn't falling on the sword, when things aren't going right at that position, the sort of effect it can have.
Right. I mean, you have to fall on the sword, right? And you've got to be tough-minded, and it's not always your fault. And you know that guy ran the wrong route and you threw an interception. It looked awful and you take the blame for it and everything else that goes along with playing the quarterback position. But in difficult times, it's one of the more difficult things to do and handle personally, because you know that you want to play well and your family's watching and you've got to listen to the fans and the criticism and everything else. And at the same time, it becomes a toxic culture if you let it, right? And it can impact you as a person, as an individual, as a player, when all these things are being said about you and a lot of them aren't true. And you can't really stand up and say the truth at times or speak your mind, because then it just sounds like you're making excuses. So yes, that part of playing the quarterback position is always the most difficult in my mind, is when things aren't going well, when the team's not playing up to the standard or the expectations that is set forth for them this year. And then you have to fall on the sword and kind of take it and be the focal point, which you always will be at the quarterback position. That's the nature of this business.
How much of that, Matt's about
when you're walking around? I'm sorry, I was going to say, it's not that easy when you're walking around in your bathrobe in your house, which is the stadium, right?
Right.
Pressure somehow. I
don't. That's the truth too. A lot of commercials at the stadium.
Yeah, and Matt, I'd imagine a big part of that though is like your teammates, right? Like, is that your teammates need to know that you have their back, right? Like, and because in a lot of cases you're the highest profile guy, in a lot of cases you're the highest paid guy, in a lot of cases you're going to get credit, and maybe sometimes credit you don't fully deserve when things are going well. Like, how much of like what you just kind of laid out is making sure Like, I need to know my teammates have my back, and I need to know that my teammates know I'm going to do right by them.
Right. The best teams that I've been on, it's the chemistry and the camaraderie that you have with your guys, the offensive line, the wide receivers, knowing that everybody has your back. When you get in the huddle, there's a confidence level, and you know that that guy would do anything for you. And then when these situations come up and family members are saying something, well, usually where there's smoke, there's fire. And that means that something's being told by them by one of your players. And that's hard to deal with, man. That's something that you're trusting, that, and you have a belief that you've got each other's back. And all of a sudden you start to really understand how this person feels. And that can circulate and really become toxic within a locker room. And you have to look that guy in the huddle now the next day, knowing that, hey, his dad just said something terrible about you in the media, and it's all over. And now you have to go up to the podium and answer questions about that and tell them how, hey, it's something that we'll talk about. But it's about the distractions. Thomas pointed to it. If you can eliminate distractions in an NFL football season, it's hard enough to win on a consistent basis. But by eliminating those distractions, it becomes a lot easier in terms of the team and how you operate on a day-to-day, and focus on the things that matter rather than those that don't.
So, all right, to my left, or to your left, that's former NFL quarterback Matt Cassel. To your right, that's former NFL general manager Thomas Dimitroff. Appreciate you guys coming out.